Ragh Nar Roog wins the game better than most cards. It's the king of the game with Drought hiding under its skirts because it's less cool and you have to pay your respects to the king. You play his game, either you're ready to stop it, or you're ready to use it. And if you do neither, it can feel like a big fuck you wrapped around a hate boner the size of the Eiffel Tower. That said, playing Ragh Nar Roog does not make you or anyone else an asshole or evil. So it's just how the game is right now. But just because it's how it is doesn't mean it's not a point of concern. There are two pain points for Ragh Nar Roog, or R&R, and they seem to be hitting hard. Balance and the player experience. Since I know the player experience more, let's take that one first, so it'll buy me time to think about actual points for the second one. R&R makes people feel bad. At least it's made me feel bad when it gets played against me and I don't have an answer. And I think it's because it makes winning feel like a binary thing. Like, either you have the answer or you don't. If you have the answer to it, congratulations! If they played it correctly, you still took 6 damage. And if they played it while they're ahead, they're still ahead. Even a bit more so, actually, while you had to play what is essentially a zero tempo play. See, it locks in specific parts of your deck, and you can auto-lose if you run to it. Even if you have those counter cards in your hand, and even if you do have them in your hand, you may not have enough answers anymore if they're running any other sort of weather. And if you do neither, you neither play the Emperor's game and you don't try to counter the Emperor's game, you're cutting off your own legs while Ragh Nar Roog hangs out with the cooler dudes. And that's not even going into the free-to-play aspect. It's like being born into the world thinking you can be anything you want and then learning, you can do like one thing well and then everybody else does it better. The underlying thing here might be that there's no separation between casual or competitive. They are totally intertwined. That's how online card games work, especially when you can fight anyone. Tabletop card games, at the very least, let you avoid people like they had card game transferable herpes. You can't do that in a card game. You have to fight whoever the game matches you up with, and that's not always gonna jive with the experience you're looking for. What you can only really look for here is, I want to play Gwent. I want to play some Gwenty cards. But you can't choose what kind of experience it'll be beyond that. Lest we forget though, some people do find it fun to look at something hard to beat and find a way around it. Indeed, a good number of people do enjoy working against the Emperor, plotting the resistance, finding holes in the defense using budget options. In this respect, at least, Ragh Nar Roog is vulnerable. The problem is, just because you can fight back doesn't mean it's fun. So maybe it's not about having answers, but the idea that Ragh Nar Roog limits the kind of fun you can enjoy, because you don't have a choice but to deal with the Emperor King. Also Drought, I guess there's that little friend of his, Drought. On a more personal note, I'm starting to think that casual has no place in a game wherein you can't choose your opponents. By nature, you'll have to consider the strongest cards in the game, like you're always playing in a worldwide tournament, leaving people who just want to play with some cool cards kind of in the lurch. Speaking of cool cards, let's go to balance. Okay, so there are a number of ways to check the strength of a card, but take my analysis with a grain of salt. I'm a rank 13 fuckboy. First of all, is Ragh Nar Roog or Drought easy to use? Kinda. In that there are two questions I have to ask myself before I play it. Do I need this to close out the game, and are there 2 things it will hit? And I guess I mean 3 things, because how many clear weathers has he played? Actually, even if he hasn't run out any clear weathers, if it has the potential to finish off the round, I'm probably gonna play it. 2, how much of a response does it need? Well, if you don't reply to it, they probably lose. I mean, remember Old Lubberkin and how busted he was? How he added free stir to your side of the board at the start of each round? And then remember when he wasn't fleeting? Boy, that was a fucking waking nightmare. Imagine a Lubberkin that creates a 3 to 9 point swing every turn. That's gross. 3, how many steps does it take before it's useful? Well, in terms of costs, it requires nothing, because if that's how the game works, it just costs you nothing but a turn. The standard practice appears to be throwing it out once the opponent has 2 rows occupied, each with a viable target. Really, that's the only thing you need for them to play cards eventually, so that they'll get hit by Ragh Nar Roog, and even if you only get 1 proc off it, that 6 points might be what you need to take the round. Hell, it might be what you need to squeeze another card out of them. Hell, you might just win the round outright, and all because, well, they played the game. Shame on them. So it's strong. It's relatively easy to use. Even getting minimum value off it is great, and that's if it's alone in the deck. If you have more weather like Skellige Storm, White Frost, or even just the bronze ones, the other guy's in for a nightmare. They can only have so many options, and even if they have 3 Clear Skies, the relevant mage in the deck, they still have to draw them. Honestly, Ragh Nar Roog might be symptomatic of a bigger problem. Weather. Weather requires a very narrow response, and those responses are largely non-synergistic with the rest of your deck. They're just there to answer a singular problem, and they don't even put things to your advantage. Even if Ragh Nar Roog was to be nerfed, the rest of the weather might be more manageable, but it will always be a problem. At least that's what I think. And yeah, I know, man, there are counters to weather, but very few of them are punishing enough. Clear Skies may say that Ragh Nar Roog gets screwed because they got 6 value off of gold and it only costs you a bronze, but that's not really punishment, that's just mitigation. Clear Skies goes, I stopped it, yay! Oh, you're still bleeding. Well, my job here is done. Foosh! Wait, there's more weather! Well, I hope you have my brother's number. Skadoosh! Also doesn't help that, you know, the golden weathers, heck, any weather is great when you're ahead. Play it, we have to spend a turn catching up. They clear it, worst case, you still widen the gap. Best case, they don't have it clear and you might be able to safely pass because their tempo is always going to get chipped away. It's a 2-action solution to something you did for 1 action. That's a big deal. So yeah, it's strong. It's strong enough to demand a response. Give your due to the Emperor, or you lose. But this is probably the duh part of the video. In closing, I mean, it's strong and it feels bad to play against it because it affects you in the pre-game and through deck building and in the game itself. Oppressive is the word that comes to mind, but more appropriately, my ever-present might be a more appropriate term. The Emperor and Drought always matters. But that all said, it's not down to the players. Those who want to be competitive must keep the Emperor in mind, either to count it, to use it, or both. Those who want a slightly less competitive and more quirky deck environment may be out of luck due to the lack of true separation of highly competitive players and players who just want to run a Wild Hunt theme deck because they're pretty slick. Please, I just want to use Imlerif. Okay. I mean, we either deal with it or we change the way we play, or... Which is, mind you, I'm not arguing against it. That's what you have to do. It's just that that's what you have to do in a competitive setting. What about casual players? I guess is the underlying question. So right now, we'll just have to deal with it and accept that sometimes there's the occasional spiked dildo waiting for us when we hit that find match button. Ultimately, it's on CDPR. There's a saying with Ghost, don't hate the player, hate the game. Actually, hate nothing. That's just the state of the game right now. There's room for hotfixes, it's still open beta, and it feels like CDPR is actually using the word beta as it is intended. A test, even if the consumers do not feel that way. There is an argument to be made with how consumers view open beta as actual release and can determine the future of the game. CDPR apparently might be using this as still a beta. There are quite a few cards that don't work as they are printed. There's that card in Scoia'tael that says they get promoted when you play Weather that actually clears Weather, but whatever, I'm just gonna let that go. Look, I'm not gonna say whether that's fair or right now, because I don't want to sit in a hot pitchfork. But that's where we are. Alternatively, maybe there's an answer somewhere in deck building. Remember how long it took before anti-meta Queensguard took off? Anyway. That's it for now. I'm going to go back to saving scrap for Drought so I can make people hate the game some more. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, you can subscribe to the Dark Fluffy Cloud channel so you don't miss a thing. While waiting for the next episode, you can like the video, you can share it, you can leave a comment, you can do all those nice things and more. But you don't have to do anything I say because I'm not the boss of you. Who I am is Patinator. And I'll see you later.